Good evening. I'm Frank Reynolds, and this is World News Tonight. The President of the United States today celebrated a bipartisan triumph on Social Security, one he could not have won without the help of Democrats. And then he braced himself for a blow that now seems certain to come from the Republicans, the people supposed to be on his side on withholding taxes from interest and dividends. We have two reports. First, White House correspondent Steve Shepard.
The Washington weather may have been cold and blustery, but the mood at today's White House signing ceremony was warm and congratulatory. President Reagan and congressional leaders began by praising each other for putting aside partisan politics just long enough to bail out the Social Security retirement system.
This bill demonstrates for all time our nation's ironclad commitment to Social Security. Just a few months ago, there was legitimate alarm that Social Security would soon run out of money. Today, all of us can look each other square in the eye and say we kept our promises. We promised that we would protect the financial integrity of Social Security. We have.
All work together on both sides of the aisle. It shows, as the President said, the system does work. This is a happy day for America.
The President then used 12 pens, one for each letter in his name, to sign into law a number of changes that everyone hopes will keep the retirement system solvent. Among them, a gradual increase in the normal retirement age to 66 by the year 2005 and 67 by 2022. A delay in this year's cost of living increase from July to next January. The inclusion in the system of all federal employees hired from 1984 on. The speeding up of already scheduled Social Security tax increases. An increase in the tax paid by the self-employed, and the taxation of some Social Security benefits for retirees making $25,000 a year and above. President Reagan and a majority on Capitol Hill believe that these structural changes will do a lot more than simple tax increases to reinvigorate the Social Security system. There are some experts who believe that now, with a little bit of luck, the retirement fund might one day even begin to run a small surplus. Steve Shepard, ABC News, the White House.
This is Britt Hume on Capitol Hill, where the President and Senate Republican leaders lost out today to the bank lobby and its Senate allies in the long fight over whether there should be tax withholding on interest and dividends. The young Republican Caston said he was on the verge of his biggest legislative victory. Senate Finance Chairman Dole, who had fought tooth and nail for a month, was forced to admit he didn't have the votes, and Caston did. The result, a deal on Caston's terms. No tax withholding on interest and dividends until 1987, and then only if the General Accounting Office finds and both houses of Congress agree that there is significant tax cheating on investment income. Banks and savings and loans mounted a huge lobbying and mail drive against the law passed last year that would require, starting this July, 10% of all interest and dividends to be withheld for taxes. It isn't a new tax, but the paperwork was enough to make the banks oppose it, and they got millions of customers to join their campaign to repeal the law. The compromise finally agreed to isn't repeal, but Caston said it's just as good.
In my opinion, the possibility of ever having withholding on interest and dividend income is very remote.
But would the administration buy it? Treasury Secretary Regan indicated not.
My own personal position, as well as that of the administration, is that we should stand firm. The President last Saturday said that he would veto it, and when he says something, he usually sticks to it.
The Secretary may talk that way now, but the Senate seems likely to pass the Caston plan tomorrow, and there is at least as much anti-withholding sentiment in the House. So there seems a good chance the President, instead of casting a veto that Congress might well override, will decide to go along with this deal. Britt Hume, ABC News, on Capitol Hill.
In a moment, more on the bombing of the U.S. Embassy in Beirut. ABC News has now learned that more CIA agents were killed in the attack. We'll also have a report on those Libyan planes caught sending arms to Nicaragua. And later in this broadcast, did a Brinks truck holdup lead to a much larger crime ring involving drugs and prostitution?
This is World News Tonight with Frank Reynolds in Washington, Max Robinson in Chicago, Peter Jennings at the American Embassy in Beirut. World News Tonight, brought to you by Subaru.
This amazing innovation from Subaru overcomes two problems: bad weather and the hassle of shifting gears. It combines the extra measure of safety and traction of on-demand four-wheel drive with the ease of an automatic transmission. Now there's four-wheel drive anybody can drive. Subaru, inexpensive and built to stay that way.
If you're as proud of your lawn as I am of mine, you want it to look as perfect as a golf course. So I mow it like a pro with the Jacobson Super Bagger. Its cut is adjustable to within fractions of an inch. And the command control system is right at your fingertips. My Jacobson gives me the best looking lawn in the neighborhood. And that is not easy when your next door neighbor is Pebble Beach.
We cut the wood. We mow the lawn. We clear the snow. Nobody does a job around the home or farm like Home Light Jacobson.
Now the Middle East. We reported last night that the CIA's senior Middle East analyst, Robert Ames, was among those killed in Monday's bombing. ABC News has now learned that in addition to Ames, 3 other CIA agents in Beirut, the entire U.S. contingent, were killed in the bombing. At the White House today, flags were flying at half-staff in mourning for the Americans killed in Beirut. A high-level U.S. delegation leaves for Beirut tomorrow to escort the remains of the dead Americans back to this country. Now, once again, in Beirut, here is Peter Jennings. Peter?
Frank, here at the embassy itself, they keep digging and finding more bodies today. It's a slow process. Ambassador Dillon said it may be some time before the full extent of American and Lebanese losses are known. 9 Americans have been found dead, 8 are still missing and presumed dead. 32 Lebanese have been found dead. No one is certain how many are missing. The ambassador rejected speculation that Philip Habib, the president's envoy, was supposed to be in the embassy when the explosion occurred. Lebanese security continues to pick up and interrogate a variety of people. That doesn't mean they are any closer to discovering who actually did it. Here's ABC's Mike McCourt.
When the bomb exploded on Monday, one of the embassy staff's highest priorities, in the midst of the flaming chaos all around, was to protect and save vital classified papers. They got them out any way they could. Today, as the search progressed for additional bodies in the wreckage, senior embassy officials were continuing their hunt for more sensitive material. A short distance away, Marine guards were burning damaged files outside a temporary embassy headquarters. Inside, staff members, many of them injured, were back at work. Dundas McCullough was buried in the consular section when the bomb went off.
I struggled to stand erect. I thought what might kill me, aside from the explosion, was suffocation.
Other survivors say the blast was at first like a rushing wind until the building caved in.
I mean, I remember trying to dig myself out, and then a couple of the officers from OMC came and helped me out in the hallway, and I could walk.
In spite of the shock and trauma of Monday, the entire surviving staff, according to Ambassador Robert Dillon, wants only to get back to normal.
We have begun operations. I would not call it full operations, but we're trying very hard to get back into operation.
For others, though, this week has not been a matter of firm resolve to carry on as before. This Lebanese woman has been waiting since Monday for news of her husband. She has heard nothing, but insists on staying here day and night until she does. And late this afternoon, another woman who had also been waiting identified a red sweater. It belonged to her husband, and it was all she found. Mike McCourt, ABC News in Beirut.
One other note from here tonight about the Lebanese foreign minister. Before the Israeli invasion last summer, Eli Salem was a professor at Beirut's American University. He gave a news conference today, and to borrow a phrase, he's mad as hell, and he doesn't want his country to take it anymore. What about the attack on the embassy?
Lebanon is sick and tired of such anomic behavior on its territory.
Salem, who went to university in the States, is one of those unusual Lebanese who cares less for his religion or clan than his nation. And what fosters his anger is Lebanon's inability to prevent other nations and their gunmen manipulating the body politic here.
Israel fights the PLO. The real victim is Lebanon. Syria fights Israel. The real victim is Lebanon. America and the Soviets compete inside Lebanon. The real victim is Lebanon.
Lebanon's preoccupation at the moment is how to get rid of these Israeli troops. After that, if it happens, it will be how to get rid of the Syrians and the PLO and the Iranians and all the others who serve as surrogates for more powerful forces than Lebanon.
Lebanon is frankly frustrated by the efforts of the Arabs to make of Lebanon a security zone for themselves.
But that's the way it is. and has been. It is often said here what this country needs is a miracle. Frank?
Thank you, Peter. It was announced today that President Reagan will address a joint session of the Congress next Wednesday night. The subject, increased aid for El Salvador and other Central American countries. A House committee voted yesterday against the president's request for an additional $50 million for El Salvador. It's likely that in his speech, the president will refer to those Libyan cargo planes that stopped in Brazil and were then found to be carrying arms and explosives for Nicaragua. Pentagon correspondent John McWethy has more on how that incident occurred.
ABC News has learned that the 4 planes left Libya last weekend, refueled in Mauritania on the west coast of Africa, then were headed for Manaus, Brazil, and eventually Nicaragua, when one of the aircraft, an American-made C-130, developed mechanical problems. All 4 planes then landed at the Brazilian city of Recife. After some delays, 3 of the planes, Russian-made Aleutians, flew to Manaus, a Brazilian city in the Amazon jungle en route to Nicaragua. All this time, the Libyan pilots were claiming that they had medical supplies aboard. The pilot of the C-130, according to Brazilian sources, finally admitted under questioning that there were more than medical supplies on his plane, and Brazil ordered all of the aircraft seized. Brazilian and American sources now say there are no medical supplies as originally stated by the Libyan government. Instead, there are weapons, explosives, and military spare parts, all of which have now been unloaded and seized by the government of Brazil. Libya's leader, Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, is quoted as saying today that he regrets the dishonesty of one of his civil aviation officials who misled Brazil about what was on the plane. Brazil has filed a protest. U.S. sources say there were several Russians among the 40 crew members on the aircraft. The Reagan administration has been accusing the Soviet Union of supplying weapons to the leftist regime in Nicaragua through such middlemen as Libya and Cuba, but the president has lacked hard evidence. Now, thanks to Brazil, he has the proof. John McWethy, ABC News, the Pentagon.
Wrap the gift yet? No, my arthritis is acting up and I'm out of aspirin. Oh, take my Bufferin. Plain aspirin's smart, but it can upset your stomach. Taking Bufferin for minor arthritis pain is smarter. Some stomachs can be delicate, like fine china, and plain aspirin can upset them. Bufferin has aspirin doctors recommend most for hours of relief, plus special buffers that help protect against stomach upset. How do you feel now? A lot smarter.
Bufferin is smarter for arthritis, also in extra strength.
Right now, we're celebrating Kmart's birthday with fantastic savings on brand name products. This week, names like Polaroid, Black & Decker, Panasonic, Shakespeare, Weber, and many, many more. Look for all sorts of brand name savings in our birthday sale circular. After all, a birthday sale like this only happens once a year, and it's happening right now at Kmart. Savings throughout the store. Kmart. But hurry, Kmart's birthday sale ends this Saturday.
Happy birthday to you. Members of the board, new Jell-O instant pudding tastes as smooth and creamy as cooked pudding.
It can't. No way. Hump. Double hump.
Please test it.
New Jell-O brand instant pudding tastes as smooth and creamy as cooked pudding.
Well?
Smooth. Creamy. Like the pudding Mommy cooks.
So?
We've decided. We want another test. Yeah!
New Jell-O instant pudding tastes as smooth and creamy as cooked pudding.
There were several important decisions by the Supreme Court today. Among them, a big setback for the nuclear power industry. The court unanimously upheld a California law that could severely restrict the operation of new nuclear power plants. Law correspondent Tim O'Brien has more on today's court decisions.
The justices agreed unanimously that California and all states could ban new nuclear power plants if they chose, until the federal government approves a safe method of disposing of nuclear waste, now years away. A victory for states' rights, a blow to the nuclear power industry.
I just sort of went blank and submitted to what they was doing.
Daniel Wade was raped repeatedly while being held at a Missouri prison for youthful offenders. He sued prison officials for allowing it to happen, and today he won. In a major expansion of federal civil rights law, the court said public officials, such as prison guards, may have to pay punitive damages for reckless indifference.
Seconds from dying, I lost control of my body function.
The reason Lyons was near death was because police put a potentially lethal chokehold on him.
Such chokeholds are used in many cities, and Lyons wanted the court to throw the practice out. They threw his case out instead. The chokehold survives. Assistant New Orleans District Attorney Lisa Myers was fired for challenging policy in the office. The lower courts ruled the dismissal violated her right to free speech. Her boss appealed.
Who in the hell is going to run the DA's office? One of the assistants or the DA?
Connick won. The Supreme Court ruled 5-4 that, like everyone else, a public employee's right to free speech is not as great in the office as it is on the street. And finally, a challenge by this woman to a ban on demonstrations at the Supreme Court, which she found...
It's outrageous.
A lower court decision in her favor led to, in effect, an appeal by the Supreme Court to the Supreme Court. Today, the justices agreed unanimously to overrule their own rule. It violated free speech. Tim O'Brien, ABC News, Washington.
For much of the country, still no real sign of spring today. Snow fell on parts of Pennsylvania, Maryland, New Jersey, and New York. Heavy rains in Connecticut over the past few days left a 15-foot-high mudslide on several cars and part of a house. And in Atlanta, the temperature dropped to 30 degrees today, a new unwelcome record for the date. As Jay Shadler reports, freezing temperatures all over the South are now starting to cause serious damage to crops.
Melvin Robison has been growing peaches near Greer, South Carolina for 43 years, but this may be his last. For the second year in a row, a bitter late-season frost has destroyed nearly all of his 900-acre crop.
I'd have cried if I done it any good, but that wouldn't have done any good. But, you know, we're gamblers, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. So, lost again.
So did hundreds of other Carolina fruit growers who, like Robison, were operating on borrowed time and money, hoping this year's crop would pay back last year's losses. But this cold snap came just as the tiny peaches were at their most vulnerable. South Carolina's peach farmers have reportedly lost at least 50% of their crops, $20 million worth. Similar losses last year ended up doubling the fruit's price. Apple farmers in the southeast were equally hard hit. In Georgia, 75% of the apple crop has already been ruined. Of course, wherever possible, growers tried to fight back, spraying strawberries near Charlotte, North Carolina, with water to form a protective coat of ice. But experts say when the temperatures drop into the mid-20s, as they did here last night, crop losses for the growers are as inevitable as price increases for consumers. Most growers say that it will be at least 2, possibly 3 days before they even begin estimating their final damages. It would be useless to do so now, they say, since throughout much of the southeast, another frost is predicted for tonight. Jay Shadler, ABC News, Greer, South Carolina.
These economic notes today. The government reported the gross national product grew at an annual rate of 3.1% during the first quarter of the year. Now, this increase was slightly below the projections of government economists, but the administration said the increase is good news anyway. General Motors had some good news today. GM said first quarter earnings were the highest in nearly 4 years. But AT&T said its first quarter profits are down 13% from 1 year ago. On Wall Street, stocks finished sharply higher and closed at yet another record high.
Gus?
That's me.
Do you do wheel alignments?
Every day, pal.
Yeah, but can you guarantee your alignments for the life of my car?
Not on your life.
At Goodyear, when you purchase a lifetime wheel alignment, you also get a written guarantee. Good for as long as you own your car. A guarantee that's got our good name on it. Now, who else can give you that?
A lifetime guarantee?
For auto service that's guaranteed, come up to Goodyear.
We asked Eleanor Bailey if she thought her denture cleanser could clean away cherry stain.
I would imagine so.
What about a stain of cherry and tea?
I don't think so.
Or a triple stain of cherry, tea, and tobacco?
I would be very skeptical.
Then watch Extra Strength Efferdent attack a triple stain of cherry, tea, and even tough tobacco with Efferdent's powerful Blue Action formula.
Efferdent cleaned the triple stain in between. I'm going home and use Efferdent.
Extra Strength Efferdent removes even stubborn stains between teeth.
For years, people with big lawns have faced the same problem. What to do with the clippings? Now there's the John Deere 6.5 bushel twin bagger. 2 big hoppers you line with plastic trash bags, so cleanup's neat and easy. It could be the best way ever to take care of your clippings. We think everyone should have one. The Twin Bagger, available for John Deere lawn tractors and riding mowers.
At first, it was just an idea. An idea to build a promise into every appliance we make. A promise of pride in our workmanship to create good, honest quality. The promise of a product that assures you your money's worth. And finally, the promise of our entire company to stand behind each appliance. A promise we keep. The Whirlpool promise. It won't solve all your problems, but it's our promise to you to try to make your world a little easier.
13-month-old Brandon Hall, who received a new liver last week just a few hours after his mother testified before Congress on transplant operations, must now undergo another transplant because the liver he received then is failing. Doctors in Tennessee said today if Brandon does not get a new liver in the next few days, he won't survive. What seemed like just another robbery in Nanuet, New York, a year and a half ago, has now become the focus of a major federal conspiracy trial in Manhattan. Over the next 5 months or so, the FBI will try to prove that 11 members of various radical liberation groups are really racketeers, part of a highly sophisticated criminal organization. Hillary Brown has this report.
Its planners called it the Big Dance, an attack in broad daylight on a Brinks security truck carrying $1.6 million. That was on October the 20th, 1981, in Nanuet, New York. A security guard was murdered in cold blood, and 2 policemen were killed in the chase and shootout that followed. At first, federal authorities thought the motive for the botched robbery was purely political, because 3 of the 4 people arrested that day, Catherine Boudin, Judith Clark, and David Gilbert, turned out to be members of the Weather Underground, the radical anti-Vietnam War group that dropped out of sight in the mid-'70s. But the 4th suspect, a 42-year-old Staten Island man called Sam Brown, with an arrest record going back 15 years, became a federal informant. Brown led authorities to this acupuncture clinic in Harlem. According to FBI wiretaps, the clinic was an arsenal used not only to plan bank robberies, but to run drugs. The Brinks holdup came to be seen by the FBI as part of a complex pattern of racketeering involving a very mixed bag of people who differed wildly in background and political affiliation, and whose activities ranged from running drug and prostitution rings to preaching revolution and radical feminism. 11 of these people have been indicted for the federal trial that opened this week in Manhattan and are being prosecuted under a federal racketeering law. Only 6 are defendants, the other 5 are still fugitives. The charges against them concern not only the Brinks holdup, but a long list of robberies and other crimes from Virginia to Connecticut. In their opening statements today, defense lawyers said the case was part of an FBI war strategy against the Black Liberation Movement. They said the prosecution's only witnesses were all paid informants who had been bribed, manipulated, and doped up. In a statement yesterday, the lead defendant, Sekou Odinge, didn't try to refute the charges against him, but rather described himself as a freedom fighter who'd become a prisoner of war. 8 more people, including the 4 arrested in Nanuet on the day of the Brinks holdup, are to be tried by the state in June on straight armed robbery and murder charges. State and federal officials have been wrangling over who will try which defendant because of a New York double jeopardy law which prohibits defendants in federal cases from being tried on the same charge in a state court. What all this means is that because of one vicious, bungled crime a year and a half ago, some of the most radical, most violent protest groups of the 60s are being brought to trial as common criminals. If the prosecution has its way, what these people say here in court could be the last the American public will hear from them in a long, long time. Hillary Brown, ABC News, New York.
In other news, overseas today and outside the Middle East, Lech Wałęsa gave a news conference. The former Polish Union leader said May Day demonstrations, which Solidarity has called for, would be peaceful. We won't knock on the authorities, Wałęsa said, if they don't knock on us. The government has said that the demonstrations might jeopardize the visit of the Pope. Wałęsa said once again that Solidarity and the government should have a dialogue. He said that Solidarity should be able to operate freely. Neither is likely to happen.
Some people assume that a good-looking woman may be lacking in the good thinking department. Unless you have the same misconception of Buick's Regal, think again. Oh, sure, it's a knockout, but it's got more going for it than that. A powerful but economical V6 engine, room, comfort, style, a lot of good thinking went inside. of Regal's good-looking outside. Whoever's in charge at Buick, well, she must really be something.
Wouldn't you really rather have a Buick? Wings on your feet, from a strength deep inside. It's a drive to excel. It's a matter of pride. Roman meal, when you know what's good for you.
Natural, whole grain goodness for people who know what's good for them.
You're happy and fit, and going for more.
Roman meal bread from the people who invented whole grain goodness.
50 years ago, Budweiser hitched up the first team of champion Clydesdales, and since then, they've become an American tradition. For the Budweiser Clydesdales and all their fans, this Bud's for you.
It may be trite, but it also happens to be accurate to describe him as a giant of the industry, a creator of it too. That's why so many people in and out of broadcasting find it hard to believe that today William S. Paley officially stepped aside as chairman of CBS. Richard Threlkeld reviews a remarkable career.
When you went to work for CBS, the first thing you learned was when somebody started talking about the chairman, they didn't mean Mao Zedong. The chairman was William S. Paley, and for 55 years, CBS has been, in a very literal sense, his company. He started with 19 little radio stations in 1928, and later on, when it became a great big radio TV conglomerate, he went on attending to CBS as if it were still 19 little radio stations. He couldn't stand the idea of ever being number 2 at anything, which may be why CBS is so successful, why it is rich, and why William Paley is one of the men most responsible for what you see on television every night. And he couldn't stand the idea of retirement, as a whole long line of executives who thought they were going to succeed him and didn't found out. He tinkered and fussed all the time with the network, but he left the news alone. He allowed his TV news to be independent of him and of everybody, even though, as he said, it often gave him a terrible bellyache.
He always supported us, almost never interfered in all those many, many years. The case of his interfering with news processes or programs, almost so rare you wouldn't believe it.
Over the years, the following people were brought to you by William Paley.
I can't understand it. I've never played so poorly. Oh, cheer up, Jack. Sure you have.
William Paley finally retired as chairman of CBS today at age 81. He remains an object lesson to everybody who still thinks Ronald Reagan won't run again for president because he's too old. Richard Threlkeld, ABC News, New York.
Thank you, Dick. And my thanks, too, to Ted Koppel and David Brinkley for allowing me to stay home and fight the flu this past week. Quite a fight. That's our report for now on World News Tonight. This is Frank Reynolds. For ABC News, good night from Washington.
Tonight, you've seen it coming. Now watch it happen as forces of destruction set events in motion to bring the Carrington Empire to ruin in the season finale of Dynasty. Tonight on ABC.
Coming up on Channel 2 News, the fate of Perry MacArthur is now in the judicial system. Will it believe his story?
Little Brandon Hall's life may end soon unless another donor can be found. Details on that, along with all the news, weather, and sports, coming up next on Channel 2 News.
If your stoneware always needs replacing, Corning has a replacement for stoneware. It's their beautiful new Cornerstone collection. Sure, it looks just like stoneware, but it's a lot more durable and chip-resistant. And Cornerstone dinnerware's fresh, stylish patterns are beautiful enough for guests as well as everyday use. The new Cornerstone collection from Corning. The beauty you want from stoneware